Hello and good morning. It is Monday, May 12th. Welcome to another episode of Marlins Monday. Once again, my name is Eric Wiedeke. You can follow me on X/Twitter at Eric Wiedeke. Also, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This and all of my episodes will be found on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. So make sure to like and subscribe as 5 Reasons Sports covers the Marlins, the Heat, the Panthers, the Hurricanes, Inter Miami, you name it, they've got it. If it's South Florida sports, the best place to find local coverage in all of South Florida. But I want to get into it right away here with some of the things that happened this past week for the Marlins. Went 2-4, lost the series at home to the Dodgers, and then went to Chicago and played the White Sox, one of the few teams in baseball with a worse record than the Marlins have currently, and were unable to come away winning that series. And it's really disappointing for a couple of reasons. I think the biggest reason why it's disappointing is that it was a very winnable series, and I think that there were some things that were done. I think that there are some things that have been done this season that the Marlins have been able to do, that Clayton McCullough, quite frankly, has been able to do to affect this team winning ball games, and it's just been quite evident that there's been some growing pains going on there as he's a rookie manager, and I think the first thing that kind of jumps out at me is the decisions to keep his starters in the game when you can kind of see that they're not themselves or they don't have it. Case in point is Friday night. Max Meyer is pitching well, not great, not he doesn't look like 14 strikeouts in 6 innings max. He goes into the 6th inning. It's tied at a 2-2 ball game. Heading into the bottom of the 7th. The 2-2 ball game. You've gotten 6 innings of 2-run ball from him. And the first batter gets on. I understand having trust in your guys, but at this point right now, you had gotten 6 innings of 2-run ball from Max. You had gotten a really good start. Take your victory. Take the win. Get to the bullpen. And protect the lead from there. And the same thing happens yesterday. Sandy gets to 5 innings of 1-run ball. Lets the first batter on. You already had Henriquez warming up in the bullpen at that point. I think it was pretty evident, at least at that point in this, once you got into the 6th inning, that okay, it's time to get Sandy, because he had not had his best stuff that ballgame, and you had gotten a good start out of him despite that. And McCullough pushed it, and Sandy ends up giving up a 3-run homer, and the Marlins lose by a 4-2 score. Now, that's not to say that the Marlins are going to win very many games scoring 2 runs. Clearly not. And I'll get into the offense and some of the reasons why I think that they're struggling a little bit later on. But Clayton McCullough, with some of these decisions here, I understand that he has faith in his guys, and he's trying to show that he has confidence in them. But I think at a certain point, there's an aspect of trying to protect the player from themselves. And Gabby Sanchez made a point to say on the broadcast yesterday, like, I hope Sandy doesn't feel bad about that start because he pitched really well for 5 innings. Well, first thing is, Sandy's got high expectations for himself, and rightfully so. He's not living up to those expectations by any means. He'll tell you that. I don't think there needs to be any kind of hand-holding with Sandy on that. Yes, he's coming off of Tommy John surgery. But no one understands the expectations and kind of the the job description of an ace better than Sandy right now, and he knows he's not living up to that. So I'm not going to harp on it too much. But Clayton McCullough, hey, listen, you let him go 5 innings, 1 earned run. You give him that confidence, he can carry it over into the next start. Now he gets a loss, 4 earned runs and 5 2/3. And the guy's just, again, at some point it's just about giving these guys a jumping off point, and you could have given him what would have been his best start of the season and let well enough alone at that point. They don't, and obviously the result was the result. But the other thing that I want to talk about is the offense here, which has really struggled of late, and particularly against starting pitchers. They hit relievers really well for some reason. And I think that some of it might be a lineup construction issue, just from the sense that, one of the best things that a starter can do is get through the first inning unscathed and in a rhythm, so that he can carry over and kind of bring that to the rest of his start. And the Marlins are 27th in the league right now in first inning runs scored per game. And I'd laid that squarely on the top of the order at the moment. The Marlins don't have any of their best hitters in the top of the order right now as it stands. Although, you can make an argument that those guys are struggling right now, so what would it matter? But you go by OPS at the top, and really the most common 3 names you've seen, at least in recent weeks for the Marlins at the top of the order, are Xavier Edwards, Jesus Sanchez, and Eric Wagman. That's a 630, 574, and 673 OPS at the top of your order. And I get it. Edwards has been hitting better lately. He had a solid series in Chicago. Wagman had a solid game on yesterday. But in most cases, this team is allowing starters to get comfortable after the first inning, settle in, get into their rhythm, and then they're not able to get anything going on the guy for the rest of his start, and they have to wait until the bullpen comes in, and then they're able to do something. And I don't know where and I understand that they've been harping on, we want to lengthen the lineup. We want to get to, we want to be able to have that depth. I think you can manage that while also trying to set yourself up offensively to start the game off a little bit stronger than what they've been doing. You take a Kyle Stowers who's batting 5th, and you put him back up into that 2-hole or into the 3-hole. You take a Dane Myers who's been hitting 8th and make him your 2-hitter, or maybe even you make him your leadoff hitter, or you could, regardless, he can be anywhere within that top of the order, at least to give your offense a little bit of juice in the first inning. Because right now it's been totally punchless for this team. 4th worst first inning offense in baseball. That's got to change for them. And just a little news and note here on Dane Myers. Hopefully he's not out for a while. He kind of pulled up after a slide at second base, grabbing at his lower back. And you really hope that it's not an oblique injury for Myers, which would set him back, would probably put him on the IL for 3-4 weeks at a minimum. And for a guy that's been one of their best regulars so far this season, they cannot afford that right now with the way that their offense is sputtering. They do have Derek Hill making rehab starts at AAA Jacksonville. I do expect to see him back. I would probably expect Ronnie Simon to be the guy that ends up going down for him, just so that he can get regular everyday at bats, because Ronnie Simon is another guy that I would like to see more at bats from. The results haven't been there just yet, but you look at his at bats, and he seems to have a really good understanding of the strike zone. He has a short swing. You like the approach, and he can run well. So I would send him down just to get him every day at bats on a regular basis. And because I think obviously Hill can give you really, really good defense in the outfield. And I think that he gives you an option to platoon with Sanchez, who's really struggling right now. But speaking of guys making rehab starts and getting back soon, Ryan Weathers is set to start the final game in Chicago against the Cubs at Wrigley Field. Talk about a first game, just kind of throwing him out there. Hey, go get him. Really tough spot for Ryan Weathers to make his debut. But this is a guy who was in the spring looking like he could be the Marlins' best starting pitcher. The fastball is playing up higher than it's ever been at 99, 100. The secondary stuff looked really crisp. The control was there. The strikeout stuff was there. The mentality that a guy like Ryan Weathers brings to the mound. I think he can be right now. He can kind of be that alpha dog in the rotation that the Marlins have been lacking to this point. Sure, they've gotten better starts lately from Beoso and Quantrill, but those guys are really more so stopgap options in the rotation at this point. I think what they're trying to get to right now is a rotation where it's Weathers, Sandy, Perez, Max, and Cabrera. And at least at that point, you've got 5 guys that all have pretty good upside. Even Sandy, who I don't know what it's going to take for him to get going, honestly. It's not a great situation there for anybody. At this point, Sandy's really going through it. But you add Ryan Weathers to rotation, you add a little bit more depth, you add another power arm there. And a guy that, like I said, Ryan Weathers was looking like a different guy, even to the one that we saw in 2024 and pitched well. Again, you're talking about increased velocity. The fastball was getting better movement than it ever has in terms of that vertical break. It looked like it was rising in the zone to hitters. The movement was as good as it's ever been on his secondary stuff. So really looking forward to seeing Ryan Weathers rejoin this rotation here. And the Marlins start tonight with a 3-game series against the Cubbies and then end up following that up with a 3-game set versus the Rays at home. So it'll be interesting to see how this week goes for the Marlins, trying to put aside last week's 2-4 finish and try to make something out of the month of May, as it has been a really, really rough start to the second month of the season for the club. But follow along here for more. I will be back next Monday with another episode of Marlins Monday. And always, as it stands, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. My name is Eric Wiedeke. You can follow me at Eric Wiedeke on X/Twitter. And as always, this and everything that 5 Reasons Sports does is sponsored by PrizePicks, the best daily fantasy sports program or platform out there. Make sure to use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, for $50 in bonus funds on your first line of entry of $5 or more. That is PrizePicks. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.